The wealth tech revolution is now. WealthStack provides bolder technology strategies and powers a new generation of growth-oriented advisors. Join us in Florida, May 21st to the 24th, and get 20% off now with our discount code WEALTH20. That's WEALTH20, WEALTH20, and be sure to search WealthStack to find out more. Welcome to the WealthStack podcast. I'm your host, Shannon Rosic, the director of WealthStack Content and Solutions. I'm joined by Andrew Altfest, CEO and founder of FP Alpha, an AI-driven advanced planning platform. In this episode, we'll be taking a deep dive into why investors are looking for more complex advice and how technology is helping bridge the gap in areas of financial planning that are currently underserved. Andrew, thank you so much for joining me.
I'm really excited to be here with you.
Likewise. I mean, we always do video together. This is our first podcast, so I'm excited to chat with you in this format.
It should be fun.
So between being the president of Altfest Personal Wealth Management and founder of FP Alpha, I'd argue that you're probably a bit busy. So while many folks in our audience know you or have seen you on the conference circuit, for our newer listeners, give us a quickish overview of your come up in the industry and how you ultimately became a Fintech CEO.
Yeah, so I've been around the industry my entire life, going way back to the days that were, in retrospect, very early in maturity in our industry, particularly in the RIA space. So both my parents are financial advisors and were some of the early pioneers in the profession. I've now been an advisor for 20 plus years. It's hard to believe it, but it's been over 20 years that I've been a financial advisor. And I see myself as a next gen leader of a larger RIA firm. And so the genesis of FP Alpha came out of a pain point that I had. And you go back to, do you remember the 2016 days when Betterment, was just getting on the scene? And
yes.
And if you were in New York City, like I was, you would see these taxi top advertisements for Betterment. And we had clients at the time who were asking us, robos are emerging. What's your differentiator? And I was, clients and prospects, and I was giving it a lot of thought. And I was saying, well, what's the clear differentiation between us and robos? And there's this clear differentiator in terms of the scope of work. And so, of course, robos will help you with investments. We were helping our clients with tax planning and increasingly with estate planning, insurance planning, just way beyond an automated rebalancer. And so we were, driving enormous value just by helping clients in these areas. And I asked myself, do clients want this from us? And yes, they do. I mean, clients love help in these areas. You'd see this, we'd survey our clients, you'd see surveys in the industry. People want help in these areas that have traditionally been more underplanned. And we've been doing tax return analysis and tax return reviews for our clients for years. And then we started to embark on estate planning. And this was all to deepen our value proposition to our clients. Now, in estate planning, we actually built a 35-page checklist working with some really smart attorneys. And we would review our clients' estate documents and combine it with this really extensive, difficult to use checklist. And I could see that at this time, going back to 2016, that there was all this talk about AI and how AI could help. And I remember clearly showing the checklist to one of the attorneys and getting his feedback on what we had already developed. And he looked at me and he was like, you better make sure that Watson doesn't get a hold of this, because
no kidding.
Yeah, this is going to be, this could be made very useful. So, the light bulb went off. And I wanted to, what was really important was that I wanted to make sure that the pain point that I had wasn't a pain point that I just had. And so I started to connect with friends in the industry and who are advisors. And I asked them, like, what don't you like about the financial planning process? And what I heard was something that was a big pain point was the information gathering part of it. You have to gather all this really detailed financial information from a client, and then you have to enter in all this financial information, and it takes a long time, and it's not considered a high value activity. It's quite painful. I would speak to advisors, and I would also ask them about their software, what, their planning software, what do they not like about it, and they give me these like small things that they wanted to have fixed. And it's like the old Henry Ford saying, if you ask someone who has a horse and buggy what they want improved, they would want their horse to go faster. I'm not going to tell you to create a car. But when I started to ask people and test out this concept of let's say taking an estate document, a will and a trust, and uploading it to a software platform that used AI and that would read those documents and tell you what was wrong and what could be improved, then people would say, "Man, that's financial planning 2.0." So they would come up with these small glitches that they wanted fixed, but the vision of of using AI to significantly enhance the planning that was being done and save a lot of time, there was a really strong receptivity to it. So I said, I'm going to go for it. And that opportunities like this really don't come around every day. And then I changed my whole schedule. I started literally my sleep schedule, my work schedule. I started getting up at 5:30 a.m. in the morning, working on weekends. I put off having a family until I could establish a great initial version of FP Alpha. And I said, I want to really push the industry for it. I want to be part of that process, so that the industry could do more for clients, have that advisors could thrive more by using technology. And I partnered with a really intelligent AI developer who is our CTO, and I invested in him. And I met him through someone who was consulting with me. He did at that time consult for startups and people who were working on creating new companies. And he met him and said, I have someone who's really smart. He has some experience, but he strikes me as someone who's really intelligent and has a lot of potential. And so I made a big investment in him. I chose him, people who were used to work at Microsoft and people who were doing a lot of work for early stage companies. And I said, this is a guy that I think has the potential to hit the long ball. And he is my partner and is the person who brings the technical expertise to the platform. And today we are still realizing the lofty vision that we had, which was turning data into actionable advice. And so we've been, of course, realizing a lot of developments along the way that we hadn't anticipated when we were working on FP Alpha and we put it out there. That customers were coming to us and asking for it. But what I think is really cool now that we've been working on the platform, at least the initial version of the beta since first in 2017, and we launched in 2020. Going back to way back to 2017, there were things that we wanted to do at that time that we just couldn't. Like the technology wasn't there at that time to allow us to accomplish the things that we wanted to. When we're revisiting those things that were wish list items now, and they are possible. And so that's so cool to see that the state of technology and what you can do with AI has actually improved, and we continue to see these groundbreaking innovations. And so the rate of change and is really accelerating. And I think that's a great thing for all of us in the industry, because it means that we're just going to be able to do more for our clients going forward.
Oh, absolutely. And trailblazing runs in your family between your parents and now you, and really being a growth-minded advisor and capitalizing and having the wherewithal to capitalize on an opportunity like this is massive. I remember when FP Alpha first came on the scene, and you were kind of one of the first adopters to say, hey, we can take AI and really do some interesting stuff with it in the planning world. So it's been fun to see it all kind of come to fruition, and like you said, just expedite the rate of change. So exciting things in the horizon, it seems like, for FP Alpha. And I appreciate the background and everything, but we have to get into segment one, so you know what's coming now. It's stats all, folks. So, Andrew, I do want to talk about, in a similar vein to what you mentioned earlier about kind of this nuanced planning, I want to talk about 89% and 25%. According to a recent study by Spectrum Group, when they surveyed investors, 89% said they desired tax planning advice from their advisor, and only around 25% actually received it. Why is there such a big disconnect in what investors want and what some advisors actually deliver on?
Yeah, I think it's been the software that we've had access to. And I think if you look at the financial planning tools that we've had access to in the industry, the scope is limited, and how you solve the problems is also limited. So the tools that we have are pretty much financial calculators, and they allow for great number crunching, but they're going to help solve a very specific problem, which is retirement planning and cash flow planning. And the tools themselves were built to be manual tools. And so I'll give you the equivalent. It's like, if back in the day, if we wanted to figure out how to drive from New York to Connecticut, we would, take out a map, and I remember having a road atlas in the back of my
Me
car, and I
too.
would take it out. Yeah. So I wasn't sure you went back that far, but I do. And I would say, okay, here's the best way to get from point A to point B. I don't know what the traffic situation is, and I think it's the best way. I don't know the little roads that will take you and give you shortcuts. Now, that is the equivalent of the old technology, and it takes a lot of time, and you hope for the best. Now we have smart technology that will tell you how to get from point A to point B in the shortest amount of time, and it's a cinch. And people are relying on that technology. And so the tools that we've had have been more limited in scope, and they've taken a huge amount of time to actually work through. And they're not always. And so I'll give you the example, tax prep software. It's been there, and it's certainly robust, but it doesn't really meet the workflow of the financial advisor. The advisor wants to find ways to reduce taxes for their clients. They're not necessarily trying to prepare tax returns, and some are, but most aren't. And so the ability for an advisor to really find the ways to reduce taxes was really painful before. From my experience at Altfest, we were literally going through our clients' tax returns manually, and we would combine the tax returns with these flow charts that we created, flow charts of different opportunities. If someone's income is at this level, then they can, take this action. It could be simple. It could be making a retirement plan contribution, or perhaps it was about when it made sense to use a donor advised fund and when they should consider accelerating contributions to it. So we're doing all this manual work, and there had to be a way to hit the easy button. And so now there is that way. I mean, now you can, literally take a client's tax return through FP Alpha, upload it, and it's read, and that information is combined with algorithms that were built by these really smart CPAs who which then leads to recommendations, high impact tax reduction recommendations. And I'll give you an example. I was just last week meeting with a client, and he has two younger children. And like many of our clients, he is paying for their expenses that he pays for that allow him and his wife to work. And those expenses, like after school programs and summer camp costs, well, those expenses entitle him to take a dependent care credit and for per child, and it's $3,000 per child. And so we looked at his tax return, we put it into FP Alpha, and we saw that he wasn't taking those dependent care credits. He wasn't claiming these dependent care credits, and as a result, he was overpaying in his taxes. And of course, you can imagine the delight that he had. This was pure alpha. Now, the time that it would take to find those opportunities is very minimal. And so you're automating a lot of the work starting by uploading tax returns. And previously, you really couldn't treat every client like a Rockefeller. I mean, yeah, you could justify doing this manual work for some very big clients. But today you can find these opportunities. You can provide this advice to all clients, from the Henrys to the highest net worth. So at FP Alpha, we literally went through every tax guide. We hired the smartest CPAs we knew. And now when you upload a tax return, you get this visual analysis and all these recommendations. And you can also quantify the value of your advice, which has always been the intangible thing in financial planning, even though the value there is arguably as strong as on the investment side. So you can do some really cool things. I'll give you one more example. We had a client, he was a potential client at the time. He came to me, and when he was evaluating us, and he said, "I want your tax advice to pay for your services alone. I already have some money being managed, and I want to work with you, but I want to see that your taxes are going to pay for your tax reduction ideas are going to more than offset your fee." So I said, "Okay, game on, let's do it." And literally, I uploaded his tax return to FP Alpha. I found 3 high impact planning opportunities to reduce his taxes, and he became a new client. So this is the power of technology. This is the power of what we now have available to us that we didn't have before, that really limited what we could do for our clients.
And how quickly is that happening once you have the documentation, it's uploaded, into FP Alpha? How quickly are you able to turn around those results for clients on average?
Oh, I mean, minutes.
That's incredible. I mean, what a long way we've come, because, I can imagine, like you said, you went from a 35-page checklist to within minutes maximizing somebody's opportunities just around, tax planning. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's a win for many people out there, many people who basically are getting more advice, and whose relationships with their advisors have strengthened as a result of the advisor just being able to provide more help, more assistance, and just have a closer relationship as a result.
Absolutely. So I know we covered tax planning, but there's an even more significant gap, I would say, when it comes to estate planning too, which is another specialized area of planning. And that same survey said that 92% of investors were desiring advice around estate planning, but only 11% receiving it. So kind of seems like financial providers and advisors really need to reassess their service models at this point, right?
Yeah. Estate planning is really interesting, because with estate planning, you're entering the world of something that's very complex. And now that complexity is definitely not tech enabled. And so unlike with tax, where you have people who are accountants who are using technology, the people who are doing estate planning for the most part are not using technology. And I was speaking to an attorney recently, great attorney, and I asked him what technology he used, and he told me Word and Outlook.
Oh,
So,
ouch.
and he's actually fairly early career. So there just is not estate planning technology, and there hasn't been. And so you're doing these really manual reviews. You're reading documents. That's how it's done today. You read legal documents and you create flowcharts that are built in PowerPoint. And you know what? You better have great competency to do this work because it's not easy. This is work that requires a lot of expertise. And the high cost of time to do this work has only been justified for the wealthiest clients. And, with estate planning, when you look at estate planning as compared to tax, with tax, you're really trying to help optimize a client's planning to save them money. But in estate planning, you're dealing with potentially catastrophic issues and situations. And those situations, if you identify them, you're preventing the client from experiencing a lot of pain in the future. And it's pain because money is not going to go to the place where the client wants it to go and that they, had intended it for it to go. And so the advisor, when engaging in estate planning, really has the opportunity to be the hero. And I think it's not enough to just make sure that documents are in place. I mean, that's very clear. To just say, go and make sure, okay, the client has a will. They had a will created 5 years ago. It's not enough. I was working with a client uh, a couple of years ago, and he came in. He was a busy executive. He said, we said, well, what can we help you with? He said everything. He needed help with everything. And he said, though, that the one thing he didn't need help with was estate planning because he had just gotten his estate planning done. Now, we got around to looking at his legal documents, and we uploaded those to FP Alpha. And what we found, this was someone who had a child. He had a spouse, but this was a second marriage for him. He had a child with his previous spouse, and then he had a child with his new spouse. And in his legal documents, he was leaving all of his assets to his current spouse. They're in effect disinheriting the child from his first marriage. Now, he didn't want to do that. He didn't want to disinherit this
Oops.
young child. And when you find issues like this, which come up quite a bit, unfortunately, you're basically, and you bring this to a client's attention, you're basically becoming the client's advisor for life. I mean, this is why, when you're able to make such a difference in their lives and on their families, it's just a very special thing, a special amount of value that you're providing, and that you're really differentiating yourself against others by doing that. And in this case, this is someone who's very high earning, who is, just at the getting to the peak of his career, and to solidify a relationship like that is very valuable. So we see the opportunity though for AI. So what happens? You're doing, you used to have to do this work manually, read the legal documents, use PowerPoint, better have the competency. So what happens if you just hit the easy button on this thing and you dream big? And so if you upload the legal documents and the AI reads the legal documents, and then you have software that's creating a flow chart, a wealth distribution plan based on those documents, how is the money transferring upon the death of the first spouse death, the second spouse death. And then you can put this in front of clients, and you can help clients understand how their plan functions. How is their estate plan functioning? and then they can take action. And further, FP Alpha tells the advisor what can be improved in someone's planning and allows the advisor to model different scenarios against the current scenario as well. So again, what it would have taken and it did take, and still, because we just launched our estate planning module has been around since 2020, but we just launched this new snapshot last year. Still most people are doing this the old-fashioned way or not at all. And as you alluded to in the study, most people are not doing it because there isn't the technology and time and in some cases the expertise to do it. But would have taken hours between reading these documents and creating flowcharts, it now takes no time at all. And that's the beauty of AI. And when we launched in 2020, there were some people who couldn't even believe that we could do this, that this was you can't read a legal document using AI. No, you can't do that. Now, I think that since 2020, I think the community, the world is more accepting of what AI can do. And but still, we're the only ones doing this today when it comes to reading legal documents using AI. And it's just, it's an amazing transformation as to how you can now engage in estate planning and go from I don't know what you said. I think it was like 20%. Why not go to 100%? I mean, the technology is there.
Exactly. And I really appreciate the use case examples and putting it all into context, because you really are showcasing, because you live on both sides of the world as an advisor and also, a fintech CEO. You're having these conversations with clients that are so nuanced, and it's really showcasing that investors' desires are going beyond just investment advice, and how FP Alpha is really helping bridge that gap around those underserved areas that we've been talking about. And we're talking about a lot about engagement. And so, I've really enjoyed learning about this newer category on the Michael Kitz's Fintech map around advice engagement. So just at a high level, talk to me about some of the specific tools, I should say, that FP Alpha offers, so advisors can truly identify actionable recommendations, and how AI is playing a role in it.
Yeah. So I think the recommendations that are what you're getting from FP Alpha. I mean, I've kind of talked a little bit about it, but maybe I should go into some more detail. So with FP Alpha, you on the tax side are able to simply upload a summary. Upload a tax return, then get a summary, get recommendations, and then those recommendations you can model. You can take the information from the tax return is actually pulled forward into a projection tool, and you could model different scenarios, unlimited scenarios. If a client is in New York and is thinking about moving to Florida, or is single and is thinking about getting married. And we also have a Roth simulator, which we've been told is the best out there. So we're really proud of it. We just launched the second version of it last month, and you can go into great detail there about everything from what will happen if the client's income drops in a few years, and should they wait to convert to a Roth then? Should they convert now to the next up until the next tax bracket? And you can go into great detail. You see what's happening with IRMA and Medicare premiums. You can go into a lot of detail, or you can also have FP Alpha come up with the optimal strategy when it comes to converting to a Roth. And so you can solve that in different ways. So you can say, I want to minimize taxes over a client's lifetime. What's the optimal conversion strategy? I want to maximize the amount of money that's going to a client's heirs. I want to see the scenario in which the most money is that the client ends up with the most money over their lifetime. So you're able to again, make it easy, hit the easy button. And with Roths, the difficulty has always been getting clients to act on the advice. You're telling the client, pay a lot in taxes now, better have a very good justification and a really easy to understand illustration so they can see that they're going to be paying taxes, but expected to make more money over the long run by doing that. You better convince their tax preparer as well, because that goes against what a lot of people advise in terms of just trying to minimize taxes. On the estate planning side, we talked about that some. You upload a legal documents, will, trust. We also read power of attorney documents, advance directives for medical care, and that information is read using AI in FP Alpha, and then you get this snapshot. And the snapshot shows who the key people are, shows the distribution plan, if there are trusts, so how income can be taken out of the trust. And then you get these recommendations about what can be improved. And the recommendations could be, things that are straightforward, like, hey, you got this estate plan done in New York, you followed the herd to Florida, it's time for a new estate plan. Or it could be something much more subtle, like, hey, you have a power of attorney document, you have a disclaimer trust, and if you are incapacitated and your spouse passes away and you're not able to disclaim, you better make sure that your agent is able to disclaim. And have you provided for your agent the ability to disclaim? So very detailed but important planning. See, that comes out of FP Alpha, and you have a lab, and you can run different scenarios, and you could say, well, what happens? I'm subject to New York State estate tax. What happens if I retitled my assets? I gifted my life insurance policy to a trust, got it out of my estate. I started making lifetime gifts. I moved my house to a Cupert. We can see how the state estate taxes go from something big to something to nothing. And that could be done in the estate planning lab. And then on the insurance side, you can upload all personal insurance policies to FP Alpha, and recommendations are generated in home and auto and life and disability, long-term care, and there's some fun things in home and auto. I mean, how many clients have policies that they got when they were 22 years old and their lives have changed significantly? They've built assets, they've built wealth, and they have things that don't fit their needs, and they have things that should be improved. They should have better coverage and ways to reduce costs, from simple things like raising deductibles to and knowing when that's a good idea, to making sure they're taking advantage of all credits and discounts out there. So that's the scope of FP Alpha. I mean, that's the gist of it. We have 16 areas. We have property. You can even go into the weeds and look at a client's property taxes and see if you can save them money. And there's a number of cases when you can, but the most widely used areas are within tax, estate, and insurance.
Well, I appreciate and thank you for the deep dive on all things FP Alpha, but it's time now for segment 2 of this episode, Ask Us Anything, where I've gone out to the social universe and asked them to submit questions they want answered by you, Andrew. So let's see who slid into the DMs this week. We did have a question. How is AI being used effectively now in the financial planning process, and where are there significant opportunities? You're in the hot seat.
Okay. Better be ready. Well, I think that the answer to that question is that unfortunately AI in the industry is being used minimally. You have we have some bots, digital assistants that can help set meetings and interact with clients. There's some technology out there that can help predict client life events. And so we are seeing some AI, but for the most part, it's in front of us. And I think I have these conversations with our with our CTO about the role of AI and what is possible today and in the future. And is it to have a smart assistant, one that can do things for you like book appointments and buy flowers for loved ones, etc., or is it to be able to make the advisor smarter? And there was a great article recently in the Wall Street Journal about a company who was called HomeServe USA, who was using AI with their customer service team to make perform even better. And so they would be taking these calls, and they were trying to sell people on the phone different services that they offered. And they'd have these people on the phone would have these digital, really smart AI driven digital assistants who would tell them what they should be thinking about telling the customer, that would help them complete the sale. And it's based on all this data from all these other customer interactions. And, it could be something small, like be more enthusiastic, or it could, lead them to a certain recommendation. And I think the AI in the future is going to make the advisor smarter, which just means that the advisor is going to tackle more problems with minimal time spent. And I think that's the great thing for all of us, because the value that we provide as advisors is just going to increase going forward. And that's tremendous, because the more value that you can provide, the more that you could charge for your services.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
it's funny you say that because, somebody actually, another question we got on social, which you're already alluding to, is how can financial advisors use advice engagement tools to quantify and communicate the value they're creating for clients? So you're already kind of talking about it, but I want to make sure we hit that one too.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great question, because the problem with planning is that it hasn't been tangible. And so financial planning, you might do something that you might provide advice to a client that alters a client's financial plan completely. And I think everyone is doing that, but there's been no way to get credit for it. I mean, you can run an investment performance report, and there are plenty of providers out there that will do that for you. And you can stick it in front of a client and say, this is how much your portfolio has grown. But this like really transformational advice that you're providing in the other parts of their life, you're getting no credit for it. It's nowhere. You provide the advice, and then the next meeting you can show a performance report, but that advice is you have no trail. There's no record. There's nothing that lives in the relationship. You just hope the client remembers. Now, to actually use engagement tools to get credit for that advice, and quantify and communicate the value, well, you can list what was done. In FP Alpha, we have a whole list of recommendations that were made. Maybe it was on the charitable side, it was on the estate planning side. So you can show that to a client, say, this is what I did for you this year. This is what I did for you the last few years. Let me, keep that in the back of our minds. You can also quantify the value. And so, these intangible things, planning is very tangible. I mean, you're saving taxes, and whether it's on the income tax side, the estate side. And what we do within FP Alpha, we love using the lifetime value of advice. And so something that recommendation you gave a client that saved them $2,000 of taxes, if you look at if this is an annual recommendation they can now use over the course of their lives, let's say it's could be something small, giving appreciated securities to charity, well, that becomes very big. And as if you look at it over them doing this consistently over their lives. So it's quantifying the value of the advice is very big when it comes to planning. And then I think finally, setting a calendar and showing the client the experience that they're going to get throughout the course of the year, in which they can see something visual. They can have a visual look at that calendar and know that this is what we're going to cover in Q1. This is what we're going to cover in Q2. Maybe in Q1, I'm updating your plan and going over investments. And in Q2, we'll take a look at your insurance. In Q3, and we'll do estate planning. In Q4, tax planning. And sometimes we might do estate planning every other year, and only at certain aspects of insurance in one year and certain aspects in another year. But they see the experience that you're providing to them, they see it. And so they see the tasks that are outstanding and what they're going to do and what you're going to do and what their attorney is going to do and the CPA and there's an insurance person. And so you're really, they're seeing it and it becomes tangible. And I think that the visualization of it, along with the quantifying the value and knowing what has been the advice, capturing the advice that's been provided throughout the relationship, I think all those things allow the advisor to get full credit for the work that they're performing.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you being put on the spot with this and being put in the hot seat. But we've come to our final and honestly is probably my favorite segment of the podcast, stack it or whack it. So Andrew, I'm going to throw out a few technologies, not necessarily WealthTech related, and you tell me if it's worth the hype or not. So stack it or whack it. So the first one I want to talk about is Chat GPT. I know I've thrown it out before, but I'm always curious about takes on it. And, now we have Chat GPT, we have Bing, we have Bard. How will these impact our industry? And are we really ready to stack it or whack it in its current state? I mean, Bing's already getting a lobotomy for being rebellious.
Yeah, stack it. Let's go with stack it. I
Love
love
it.
ChatGPT. I think transformers are a game changer. We're actually incorporating transformers into the models that we're developing at FP Alpha. Better models, faster processing of data. And I think it's not hard to have a little bit of imagination and just to see how this is going to really transform and make our lives easier. So, you're going to be able, I think we're all going to be able to automate more of the work we're doing. I mean, just think about, personalization of emails and the automation of emails. So how much time are we spending communicating, sending emails out to clients and communicating with clients? Well, let's say I want to send an email out to every client on their anniversary date of being a client of our firm, on their birthdays. I want to indicate, I want to refer back to their favorite restaurant. I want to send them, their favorite dessert from the restaurant, or I want to send them I want to buy them I want to provide a cup of coffee when they come to the office the way that they want it to be provided. And I think the communication and keeping track of everything is a huge time suck. And I think the automation of this with models like ChatGPT is going to allow advisors to provide an even greater proactive white glove experience with less time spent.
Love it. That is great perspective. So my second technology I want to throw out, after a little research, I did discover that you are into running and biking, and I love asking folks about fitness tech. And so I saw that Bose recently came out with sunglasses that have audio output, no earbuds, so you can hear the environment around you while working out. They're sweat and weather resistant and can connect to your device, tablet, what have you. So do you consider this sports tech of the future, or stack or whack something like this?
I'm going with stack it again. I live in New York City. I bike 80 miles a week
Oh my
through the
gosh,
streets of New York City.
you're brave.
Brave or crazy. And I definitely need all my senses to stay alive when it comes to bike and not getting hit by a truck and biking through New York City. So, when it comes to playing music, I'm not going with the earbuds. I need to hear what's going on. So, having something that will play music that is not in my ear, I love it.
Awesome. Well, Andrew, thank you for indulging me. And I've really enjoyed our conversation today. I know we covered a lot of ground, but feel free to tell listeners quickly where they can find more about FP Alpha and where they can follow you.
Yeah, it's easy. www.fpalpha.com/demo. And you can find us at fpalpha.com. If you want to connect with me personally, LinkedIn is a great place. Andrew Altfest. And yeah, I'd love the opportunity to share FP Alpha with you in more detail or just connect.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again, Andrew. And if you are looking to stay ahead of the technology status quo, don't miss our WealthStack event, part of Wealth Management Edge, May 21st through 24th in Hollywood, Florida. And be sure to follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter. So thank you all for listening today. The WealthTech revolution is now. WealthStack provides bolder technology strategies and powers a new generation of growth-oriented advisors. Join us in Florida, May 21st to the 24th, and get 20% off now with our discount code WEALTH20. That's WEALTH20, WEALTH20, and be sure to search WealthStack to find out more.